Hey, my name is Lucas, and in this video we're going to take a look at NocoDB and no-code database, or no coding required database is an Airtable alternative, and you can use it on top of an existing Postgres database, for example, and it provides this beautiful user interface that you can use to design the database, add and modify the data, or run all kinds of different filters and queries on that. So without further ado, let me show you how you can run your own version of NocoDB in the cloud. And we will use a service called Sliplane. I will go to sliplane.io, and Sliplane is a cloud provider that is specialized on hosting Docker containers. And since NocoDB is open source, it is usually published as a Docker container as well. So Sliplane is a great way in order to deploy it. So let's get started with our GitHub account. If you don't have a GitHub account, go to github.com and create your account for free. And then you can sign up at Sliplane using your GitHub account. First thing that I have to do is I create a new project, name this one NocoDB example, for example. And you can give it whatever name you would like. I will click on the project, then I click on deploy service right here. And then next step, I will create a new server where our NocoDB instance will be running on. So I will click on create server. And then I will give it a name and name this one NocoDB as well. And then I click on create paid server. And one neat thing about Sliplane is that you can create a server and you can deploy multiple services on that server. So I will choose the server and we will deploy two different services. So first of all, I will deploy NocoDB. So I will click on add service right here, and then on the top right I will choose registry, and then in the image URL field I can search for NocoDB, and then I will find a list of different images that I can install, and I will choose the first one, which is docker.io/NocoDB/NocoDB. And if I click on it, I can find a list of different versions that I can install. You can use all of these versions, and if you choose the latest version, it will install the latest version that is available. And I can click on this little link right here that will redirect me to the docs on Docker Hub, where we are pulling NocoDB from. And if we scroll down a little bit further and look for the example right here, we have two different ways to install it. We can either install it with SQLite, which uses a SQLite database, or we can use it with Postgres, which uses NocoDB on top of a Postgres database. So let's start with SQLite first. And I think SQLite is an underestimated database for a lot of users. They usually think SQLite, is it enough for my use case? I have tens of thousands of rows in my database, and the answer is usually yes. SQLite can scale pretty big, and for most use cases, for most smaller use cases, it is more than enough to go with a SQLite database. So let me show you how we can install NocoDB on Sliplane using SQLite. I will go back to Sliplane and scroll down a little bit further to the volume section. Then I will create a new volume and name this one NocoDB SQLite, for example. I will click on add volume, and then right here I will paste in the mount path that we just copied right here from this little Docker run example, where it says -v, and then after the colon you will find the mount path that you will need to copy and paste in to Sliplane. And I think you need to remove the slash at the end to make this valid. And then I will click on add service, and then I click on deploy, and that's basically all of the configuration that we need in order to deploy an instance of NocoDB with SQLite. So as you saw from the example, it is also possible to deploy it with Postgres. And while this is deploying right here, we will deploy another service. I will click on deploy service. I will click on the NocoDB server, and then I click on add service again. And this time I will choose Postgres here from the list of pre-configured images. And if I click on it, It's basically the same as if I clicked on deploy from registry and then I filled in these settings myself. But this time we're just using a preset which contains a randomly generated password for our Postgres instance, and the volume is already preset for us. And I can click on add service right here. Then you can see this public toggle right here. It is set to public by default, but in our case, we can switch it off in order to make our Postgres database private and only accessible from other services that are running on the same server. So NocoDB is deployed to the same server. And if we make our Postgres database private, we can add an additional layer of security right here, because we don't want to expose our database if we don't have to. So let's switch this to private, and then I click on deploy in order to start the deployment of Postgres. And while Postgres is deploying, as you might have already noticed, our NocoDB instance was deployed successfully. Great. So we are hooked up with this domain that we can use. And if I click on the domain right here, I am redirected to our instance of NocoDB. And first thing that we have to do is create an admin user that will be the super admin for our database. So let's quickly choose an email. I will just use a random email and password for this demo right here. But of course, you want to use your own email and a super secure password to sign up for NocoDB. I won't save the settings right here. And now they ask me what I plan to use it for, and I will just skip this little survey. And that's basically it. I'm in the NocoDB interface. I can create a new view on my table. I can create different columns. I can create different rows in my table. For example, this is the features table and the title. Let's add a couple of rows, test, blah, blah, blah. So as you can see, it is super easy to modify this table. I can create a new column right here, name this one count, and then we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, for example. And if we go back to Sliplane, we can see our Postgres instance has been deployed. The service is running, and we get this internal host that we can use in order to connect to our Postgres database. So let me quickly show you how you can use NocoDB on top of Postgres. So let's go back to the Postgres installation instructions right here on Docker Hub. If we scroll down a little bit further, it is Docker with PG or Docker with Postgres. As you can see, this time we need a volume, which is /user/app/data, where our user will be stored. And then we need to provide two different environment variables. And the first one will be an NC database, and the second one will be NC auth JWT secret. So I will just copy that, go back to Sliplane, and then I will go into my NocoDB instance. And if we scroll down a little bit further, we can find this environment variable section. So I will click on from env file in order to type in the environment variables in a text editor. And then I will paste in these two different strings. I need to get rid of the -e in front of the string. And then I need to replace my internal host name, which right here is called host.docker.internal. So I will open Sliplane in a new tab right here. I will click on dashboard in order to log in, go to my project, and then I open my Postgres application, and on the right side you can find the service info, and you can find the internal host that you can use in order to connect to your Postgres instance internally. I will copy the internal host, go back to Sliplane, and then I will paste it in right here. Our user is called Postgres, and our password is called, if we scroll down a little bit further, you remember the password was auto-generated for us, so I can simply copy that string right here, paste it in as a password, and the database, it is called MyDB. So let's just copy the database, and I will paste it in right here. The NC auth JWT secret, I will just leave it as this value that we have right here, but of course you can also use a random value for that. And then I need to get rid of these little slashes at the end of the environment variables that we copied from the Docker Hub documentation. So I will get rid of that and this double quote right here at the beginning, click on apply, and then I click on save, and this will trigger a new deployment of NocoDB in the background. But this time it is trying to connect to our database using this nc_db connection string that we just supplied. So let's quickly wait for the deploy to finish. The deploy is successful. As you can see, it only took a second basically. And if we go back to NocoDB, if we refresh the page, if we try to log in again, test at 123.de and the password that we previously chose, I get an invalid credentials because now we are connecting to the database. And when we first signed up, we created this super user on our SQLite database. So now the credentials won't work anymore because the Postgres database is empty and we need to sign up again in order to create a new user. So let's quickly use this data right here, and as you can see, we are now connected to the Postgres database, and it's a blank database. There's no content inside, and I can write something inside here again and modify the data in this database, create new columns, create new rows, create new views on this table, and so on and so forth. So that's basically all you need to know in order to get started with NocoDB. And as you can see, it only took 2 minutes in order to spin up the spin up the application with SQLite, and another minute to attach it to a Postgres instance. So it's very straightforward. And if you did like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment, like, and subscribe. And I see you next time.